Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today I'll walk you through our advanced drugs creator script that enables anyone to create new drugs for their server in a matter of seconds. We also prepared 10 pre-configured drugs with real-life inspired processing. So without a further ado, let's dive in. To start things off, open your chat and enter the /drugscreator command, which will open up the dashboard. The first time you open the menu, you'll have to go through this short onboarding, where you decide whether or not you want to load the preset configuration. The preset config includes 10 drugs and over 60 custom items with images ready to be installed to your server. Now you can finally take a look at the dashboard where you see exactly how your players interact with the drug system. Here you can view how many drugs were processed and sold, along with a detailed chart showing these values for each day, week, or month, depending on which time frame you select. We added this page specifically to give you a clear picture of your server's drug economy. Let's now take a look at the General Settings tab. This page contains all your essential settings and a few important buttons located at the top that allow you to back up your current configuration, restore it, or load the preset configuration again with just one click. You can also set the Discord webhook right here, and the script will send logging messages to your designated Discord channel. Now that we've gone through these two tabs, let's actually dive deep into each feature the Drugs Creator script has to offer. First off, we have harvesting zones that allow you to set up areas in multiple locations where plants or any props you want will spawn at specified intervals. We actually use this in the preset config to create zones for the coca plant, chemicals, the poppy plant, and more. Something cool that I haven't mentioned yet is that we've prepared 14 custom props, including the different growth stages of the plants, but we'll get to that later. Let me now show you how to create a harvesting zone. Simply press the Add Harvesting Zone button and a modal will pop up. Here you have a lot of customization options such as the label, progress, duration, required item, and more. To show you how powerful this feature really is, we'll create a weed harvesting zone together. Something worth pointing out is that you can customize the interaction style for each zone individually or set it globally across all of our products. Each harvesting zone can have unlimited locations. I'll add one location right now at this exact spot. You can select the coordinates directly in-game, which makes the whole process so much easier. The last thing that we can do is set up an animation or a scenario that'll play while harvesting. I'll add the classic gardener scenario for now. I'm pretty sure that should be everything for this zone. Let's confirm the modal and take a look in-game. Nice! We can see that weed plants have started spawning around us. Keep in mind that I set the spawning interval to just 1 second for the sake of this video. Normally, you would set it to something much higher like 2 minutes to balance it out, but like always, it's your call. Next, I'll show you the processing zones. We've set up over 15 zones for you and configured them for the default GTA laboratories. I think that the best way to show you how these zones work is to demonstrate with a real example inside the meth lab. Most of the settings listed here are what you're already used to from harvesting zones. One of the most important settings is the setting labeled Required Labs. The user has to be in one of these laboratory types for the processing zone to show up. But don't worry, you can place processing zones outside of laboratories, just make sure to leave that setting empty. Like anywhere else in this script, you can add as many locations as you wish and set them directly in-game. Now comes the juicy part. Our processing zones actually support synchronized scenes, meaning that the processing will be as realistic as it can possibly get. If you prefer, you can use a traditional animation, but this synchronized approach will add that nice level of detail your players will really appreciate. I'll now show you a few of these zones so you can see what it looks like when the actual processing takes place. All of these zones, alongside the items, are included in the preset config. Next up, we have the Plants feature that allows you to create any type of plant that players can grow, take care of, and harvest. We've pre-configured 3 unique plants here, each having a grass variant and a variant that you can plant in a flower pot on non-grass materials, such as concrete. The growing process is very configurable. You can set the total time it takes to grow the plant in minutes, change how fast the plant consumes water and fertilizer, and you can optionally set a max player limit for each plant in case you don't want players to plant endless fields of this specific plant. In the next tab, you need to define all your items. This includes the seed, watering can, fertilizer, and the final harvested product. You can also add other required items beyond just the seed. For example, you might want to require a trowel for planting. You can enable the remove toggle if you want the item to disappear after planting. We actually use this feature for flower pots, which I'll show you later. In the Growth Stages tab, you can configure which prop to use for each stage of plant growth and set how deep it should be placed in the ground. For example, with the weed plant, we use 2 different weed props that gradually emerge from the soil as the plant develops. To make things clear, our example starts with the smaller prop and switches to the bigger prop once growth hits 50%. Let me now show you how the non-grass version that uses flower pots is set up. Pay attention to the small changes like the grass-only checkbox. I've shown you how to set up the plants inside the menu, but now it's time to show you how planting and other mechanics work directly in-game. As you can see, it prevents me from planting another one too close. You can adjust the blocking radius whenever you want. To make the whole growing process unique, we added this plant scanner item. You can pull it out and aim it at any plant created through this system to measure its growth, sunlight, water, and fertilizer level. You can of course use a normal menu to view these metrics, but you'll need to first disable this scanner item in the general settings. There's a few things that can make a plant grow more quickly in its sunlight, water, and fertilizer level. You can optimize sunlight by strategically placing plants on the city outskirts rather than in the center. For the other components, you'll need to use a watering can and fertilizer. Let me also plant a few of them indoors to demonstrate the full functionality of this feature. As requested by our community, we've made sure plants are fully compatible with routing buckets. This means they'll work seamlessly, even with interiors that require you to teleport inside. All of the plants are perfectly synchronized, and don't worry, we made sure it's optimized so your server doesn't lag even when your players go and plant thousands of plants. So we've watered and fertilized all of the plants, but despite that, they still won't grow in here. We've actually missed something crucial. The plants need sunlight, otherwise they won't grow. Let's place in a few artificial lights to increase the sunlight metric. We've added 2 light props for you alongside their respective items. You're completely free to add more lights through the menu if needed. It's also worth mentioning that the lights are highly customizable. You can adjust whether they have a 360-degree impact, modify their range, and configure many other settings. If we look at the plants now, we can see that the sunlight meter is completely full, which means they're ready to grow. Remember to check your plants regularly to refill the water and fertilizer. Once the growth duration passes, you'll notice the growth meter reaches 100%. At this point, you can harvest the plants and collect the full amount of your reward item. It's about time we look at the laboratories. This feature goes hand in hand with processing zones and allows you to create unique lab types for the different IPLs or shells on your server. Let's take a look at how the Meth Lab is created to give you a rough idea of how this works. The default GTA Lab IPLs come in either basic or upgraded variants. Perhaps the most crucial decision in this modal is whether to make the lab public or private, as this choice determines whether you'll need to set a sell price for each location. What I love about these laboratories is that each lab type can have multiple locations, and players who enter through different locations won't see each other inside. This is because the script uses routing buckets to place users in separate dimensions while they're in the lab. Let me also show you how the private laboratories work. Next up, we have the Processing Tables feature, which works very similar to Processing Zones, except here you perform all of the processing through placeable table items. You need to define both an item and an object model for each table, and you must decide whether to allow multiple players to interact with the table at the same time. The processing table can hold as many recipes as you want, so like everything else in this script, you're only limited by your imagination. Let's go ahead and place down the table so I can show you how the processing works. I should also mention that the place tables persist after server restarts since they're saved in the database. Just like in Meth Labs, you can work through the processing chain here to create the final product. We've intentionally made the processing table slower since you're not exposed to as much risk as you would be in the labs, but you can easily customize this as you like. In case you want to relocate the table, simply press the Take option and the table will be returned to your inventory. Let me now walk you through all the different tables we've prepared for you in the preset configuration. We want you to get started using this system right away, so we've created realistic processing chains for 10 different drugs. Now let's take a look at the suppliers feature. A supplier is a ped that sells you items that you'll later use in your processing. You can have an unlimited number of suppliers, and you could essentially use this to replace all shops on your server if you wanted to. Let's create another location for this supplier to show you how intuitive the chord selection process is. You can use the scroll wheel to rotate the character so it's facing the correct direction. A standout feature of this script is the custom dialogue system. Instead of having a normal generic menu, you interact through this conversation-style user interface, which creates a more immersive and engaging experience for players. Next up, we have the Drug Effects tab. This feature allows us to make items usable and attach all sorts of effects. First, you need to define the item and progress bar along with its animation. Then come the three main tabs that decide the effects your drug will actually have. You can apply visual effects, movement modifiers, and make the drug influence your stats, such as your health. The trip chance setting is particularly interesting. I recommend using this for stronger drugs as it will make the players trip when walking or running. The script also includes an overdosing mechanic, which is influenced by the overdose level option. Each drug you take increments your total overdose level by the value specified here, and you black out once the total value reaches 1. I'll now use a few of these drugs to showcase the effects. Unlike other scripts, the effects here slowly kick in, making it more realistic. I configured the meth syringe to be pretty strong so your character may trip from time to time. The drug effects also impact your driving skills, which can cause fatal crashes. The pocket processing feature allows your players to craft items on the go. This means that you can add items like the plastic bag, and your players can use it to package drugs instead of relying on processing tables and laboratories. Let me show you how it looks in practice. Until now, we focused on harvesting, growing, and processing, but now we finally get to the selling part. The retail selling feature is designed for smaller quantity sales and also uses our custom dialogue system. First, you need to define zones where players can sell their drugs. Each zone can be customized differently. For example, you could create a zone in the wealthy part of the city where buyers pay higher prices. The whole conversation flow is very customizable. You can change settings like the pet's price tolerance, the chance he accepts an unfavorable deal, and even the chance you get reported to the police through your dispatch script. You can start selling by entering the zone and typing the /selldrugs command, or whatever the command you've configured in your general settings is. Once the selling mode is active, you can approach random NPCs on the street and offer them your product. They'll ask for your price and you'll haggle with them until you reach an agreement. Keep in mind that not every trade will be successful. If you try to price your drug too far above the market price multiple times, the pedestrian will simply walk away. We finally reached the last feature of the Drugs Creator script. Wholesale selling is designed for large bulk sales. You would typically set the price much lower than in retail selling since this allows you to sell in much larger quantities. To initiate selling, you have to put up an advertisement through the burner phone item. Once that's done, you just wait and offers from potential clients will start flowing in. Once you arrive at the location, just go near the client and a random trade cutscene will start playing.